The shuttle dropped out of warp with a sharp jolt that made Zarvik's claws tighten on the armrest. A cold feeling crept into his chest as the stars outside twisted back into shape. In the distance, dark and jagged, floated the wreckage of a dozen warships. Most were burned-out husks, split open like crushed insects. Some still drifted slowly, silent and cold, with no signs of life. Zarvek narrowed his eyes. These were not colliery ships. These were human. He had studied their kind. Of course. Every soldier in the Kalari Empire knew of humans. They were new to the galaxy, fragile, short-lived, lacking in discipline. But they fought like rabid animals and refused to surrender. It made them dangerous. And now, Zarvek was to serve beside them. The shuttle AI crackled in his earpiece. Approaching forward outpost 09. Prepare for docking. Zarvik's scales twitched. Something felt wrong. This was not a battlefield. It was a graveyard. Why would the humans keep an outpost here, on the edge of destroyed territory? The shuttle passed through the debris field. Zarvek caught a glimpse of something odd. One of the human ships, half torn open, had writing scrawled across its hull, not in paint. In blood, the translation flickered in his visor. We held the line. We didn't run. Zarvek blinked. Were these humans mad? Was this meant to be a warning? Or a boast? The outpost came into view, a gray, rust-covered station, anchored to a broken asteroid. It looked old, patched together with leftover parts. No defense guns. No active scans. Just a flickering beacon, barely functioning. He landed alone. No honor guard, no officers. Gus? Just a thick door that hissed open after a pause. A human waited. Inside, he wore dirty armor, covered in black scorch marks. His face was pale, half hidden behind a cracked visor. He didn't salute. "You're the lizard?" the human asked. Zarvek straightened. "I am Warrior Zarvek of the Kalari Empire, ranked cool. I'm Sergeant Mac. Follow me." Zarvek was taken aback. No formal greeting. No acknowledgement of rank. It's just blunt words and casual tone. They walked down a dim, narrow hallway. The lights flickered overhead. There were claw marks on the walls. Deep ones. "You were attacked recently?" Zarvek asked, gesturing. Mac didn't turn. "Nope, that's just Tuesday." Zarvek frowned. Was this humor? He couldn't tell. They reached a command room with low lighting and a holographic table in the center. 5 other humans stood around it, armored, armed, and talking softly. One of them looked up. She had a long scar down her neck and eyes that didn't blink. "This him?" she asked. Mac nodded. "Yeah, our new Kalari friend." Ain't she walked? Up to Zarvek, slow and calm. Lieutenant Rice, commander of Iron Pack Delta. Zarvek gave a proper Kalari salute. "I am honored too. We're deploying in 1 hour," she said. "Briefing in 5. Get ready." Zarvek opened his mouth to ask a question, but she had already turned away. He stood there, unsure. These humans were unlike any he had trained with, even in simulations. No order, no formality, and yet every one of them moved with confidence. Quiet, precise, like they'd done this 1,000 times, like they didn't fear anything. Briefing room was small and smelled like burnt metal. A map hovered above the table. A derelict alien structure was marked in red. No name. Just coordinates and a danger rating that made Zarvik's stomach twist. "This site is deep in contested space," Rice said. "It's unknown origin, no known owner. We lost to recon drones." Both went dark inside. One of them sent a final image. She tapped a button. The hologram flickered. A still image appeared. It was a hallway, metal walls, smooth and wet-looking. At the far end, something stood, tall, pale, blurred by motion. But the eyes were clear, 4 of them glowing blue, watching. Zarvek felt a chill go down his spine. "We're going in," Rice continued. "Objective is simple. Secure data. Identify threat. If it moves, we burn it." Mac chuckled. "If it breathes, we break it." The team laughed. Zarvek didn't. He stepped forward. "Why are we doing this alone? Why not wait for support?" Rice looked at him, because no one else volunteered. We did. Zarvek hesitated, but why? Why risk it? Because we're human, she said simply, and we don't run. Those words, the same as the blood-marked ship. Zarvek said nothing. 1 hour later, the team boarded a dropship. Human soldiers sat calmly, checking their weapons, laughing, chewing on rations. With the big Bible wall, a bit wetter to buy, the structure had no known record, no energy signature, no species match. It had simply ... appeared. As they neared the site, the structure came into view. It was massive, like a black sea urchin made of twisted metal. Up spikes jutted out in all directions. The entrance was a single round hole at the base, big enough for a tank to drive through. The ship hovered near the opening. Max stood. All right. Standard formation. Lights low, weapons hot. Zarvek followed them down the ramp. The moment his feet touched the ground, he felt it, the silence. It's not just quiet, something deeper. Like the air itself was dead. They entered the structure. Inside, it was dark. The walls shimmered with strange patterns, like veins under skin. The floor was warm. There was no dust. No damage, just a long hallway that curved downward. Zarvik's breathing grew faster. His visor displayed odd interference. His translator crackled. "Stay close," Rice said. "If you see something strange, don't look away." That sentence struck Zarvek hard. "Don't look away?" he asked. "Not if you want to live." The team advanced, slow and careful. Lights cut through the dark. Shadows moved, but nothing followed. The hallway split into 3 paths. Rice pointed right. That way they turned. Zarvik's tail twitched, felt it again breathing. Not theirs, something ahead. Long, slow breaths, like an animal sleeping. He opened his mouth to warn them when the lights blinked. Tan something. They all froze. Zarvik's heart pounded. Rice raised a fist. "Hold." Another sound closer. Another sound closer. Slow, dragging the team readied their weapons. Zarvek could barely breathe. Shape appeared at the edge of the light, thin, moving on all 4s, pale and eyeless. But it wasn't alone. 2 more stepped out behind it, and behind them, dozens. Mac whispered. "Looks like we found your breathing problem." Zarvek whispered. "What are they?" Rice smiled grimly. "They're the reason we were sent." The creatures hissed. Then, without warning, charged. The humans opened fire. Zarvek stood frozen until Mac shoved him behind cover. "Move or die, lizard." The hallway exploded in chaos. Bullets tore through flesh. Screams echoed. The smell of blood filled the air, and in the middle of it, the humans laughed. Zarvek realized. In that moment, they weren't afraid. They were enjoying this. And he had never been more afraid in his life. Zarvek sat in the dark corner of the outpost's medbay, armor cracked and stained with ash. His arms trembled slightly, though he kept them hidden under his cloak. He had fought in a dozen campaigns, survived orbital strikes, and walked through the ruins of burning cities. But nothing had prepared him for the chaos he had witnessed inside that alien structure. The humans were not like any soldiers he had seen. They didn't fight with caution. They fought like they enjoyed being close to death. Laughing, shouting, pushing forward without fear. One of them had lost an arm and kept shooting with the other, shouting jokes the entire time. Zervek had seen monsters before, but now he wondered if they were the monsters. Sergeant Mack leaned against the medbay doorway, chewing on something from a silver ration packet. He looked at Zarvek with a smirk. "You freeze up back there?" he asked casually. Zarvek didn't respond. Mack shrugged. "First time fighting with Iron Pack? Most species crack once. You didn't. Just locked up. That's better than most." Zarvek looked at him slowly. "You weren't afraid?" Mack blinked, then grinned. "What? Always afraid. You just move anyway." Zarvek's voice dropped. "What are you people?" Mack pushed off the wall. "Briefing's in 10. Rice wants you there. She's got a speech for you." He tossed Zarvek a sealed packet. "What? Eat. You look like your soul got sucked out." Zarvek caught the packet and stared at it, then slowly stood. His legs were still weak. As he walked toward the briefing room, he passed a hall lined with gear racks. He noticed carvings on the wall, names, phrases, some in human tongue, some in alien scripts. One line stood out: "Fear is fuel." He kept walking. The team was already gathered in the room. Rice stood near the holographic table, arms crossed. The others were checking weapons, replacing damaged gear or recharging power cells. Few had bandages on their arms or burns on their faces. None of them looked worried. Rice looked up at him. "Glad you made it, warrior." Zarvek gave a stiff nod. She pressed a button on the console. A holomap appeared, showing the structure they had entered. A new section flashed red. "That lower sector we cleared." "Just the surface layer," she said. "There's more underneath. Bigger, deeper. It stretches for miles." Zarvek frowned. "That's not possible. We saw the outside. It was small." "Yeah, that's the trick," she said. "It bends space. What you see isn't what you get." Zarvek looked around the room. The humans didn't seem shocked. They had expected this. "We go back in," Rice said calmly. Zarvek stiffened. "Back in." Rice nodded. "Our job isn't done." Zarvek shook his head slowly. "That place is not natural. It's not safe. We barely survived." Rice looked at him hard. "You think we didn't know that going in?" The room went quiet. She stepped forward, voice low. "Listen closely, Zarvek. You were sent here to learn how we fight. What you saw back there, that was just the start. You want to understand humans? Understand this." She walked to the center of the room and looked each of them in the eyes. "We don't run," she said. "No one moved. We don't panic. Still silence. And when something stares us down, something that shouldn't exist, something that wants to break us, we don't blink. We stand, we fight, we finish." Mack clapped once. "Who?" The others nodded, some with smiles, some with grim faces, but all of them stood a little taller. Zarvek felt something strange in his chest. He wasn't sure if it was fear or something else. A strange pull. "Why?" he asked softly. Rice turned to him. "Because someone has to." She said the next hour was a blur. Final checks. Quiet talk. Loading gear. Zarvek moved through the steps like a ghost, his thoughts spinning. He had always believed his kind were the strongest. Warriors in the galaxy, disciplined, trained, unshakable. But these humans were different. They didn't fear death the same way. Or maybe they feared it more, and that's why they were so dangerous. Back in the dropship, the ride was tense. No music, no jokes this time. Just breathing and the quiet hum of engines. Zarvek sat near Rice. He leaned in slightly. "That thing we heard. The voice. It said your name." Rice nodded without surprise. "Yeah, it's in our heads. Reads memories. It pulls out what scares." You most Zarvek blinked. "Then why go back?" She looked at him, eyes cold. "Because if we don't, the next time it wakes up, it won't just whisper. It'll scream and half the galaxy will burn before anyone stops it." The dropship landed with a metallic thud. The airlock opened, and again they stepped into the darkness. This time, Zarvek kept his weapon raised. Inside, the path had changed. Where once there were corridors, there were stairs spiraling downward into a pit of dim blue light. No signs of the creatures, no bodies, No blood, just the scent of old metal and rot. The team moved carefully, checking corners, scanning surfaces. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were alive. At one point, Zarvek leaned too close and saw his reflection in the metal, except it was smiling back at him. He stepped away fast. Rice turned. "You okay?" He nodded. "Yes, I think so." Mac whispered behind him, "This place messes with your head, don't listen to it." They reached a large chamber, circular, empty, with a tall spire in the center. Lights flickered as the team spread out. Rice tapped her visor. "Pull data, scan everything. We don't leave until we get answers." Zarvek approached the spire. Strange runes glowed faintly on its surface. He reached out, then stopped. Heard something again, breathing, but this time not ahead, not behind, inside his own head. The spire lit up. Zarvek gasped and stumbled back. The floor shifted beneath them, suddenly. The room folded open like a flower. Walls twisted. Exit vanished. New voice echoed in the air, deep and cold. "Why do you return?" "You were warned." Rice stood firm. "We came for the truth. Truth brings fear, and fear brings death." The lights snapped out, pitch black. Zarvek couldn't see anything. He turned, heart pounding, then dashed gunfire. Screams, not human. Lights blinked back on. Dozens of the creatures surrounded them, but frozen, unmoving, as if waiting. Mac whispered, "This isn't an attack." Rice stepped forward. "It's watching us." The spire pulsed, and then it spoke again. "One of you does not belong. One of you is still afraid." Zarvik's chest tightened. He felt the eyes turn toward him. Rice looked at him. Her voice was, "Quiet. Don't give it what it wants." Zarvek shook his head. "It's in my mind. I can't stop it." "Yes," she said. "You can." Zarvek closed his eyes. The sounds returned his worst memories. The screams of battle, friends he'd lost, the day his father died in a fire. All of it rushing back. He saw the human soldiers beside him, calm, still. They didn't fight fear by ignoring it. They fought it by carrying it. With them, he opened his eyes. "I'm not afraid of you," he said. The spire dimmed silence. Then, the creatures began to back away. Rice gave him a nod. Zarvek had passed the first test, but deep inside, he knew something terrible was still waiting below, and next time it wouldn't just test fear, it would become it. Zarvek gripped his weapon tighter, even though the creatures had retreated. 8. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. He could still feel the presence, something massive, old, and watching from the dark. Rice lowered her rifle slowly. "Everyone okay? Still breathing?" Mac muttered. One of the other soldiers, a tall man called Ren, looked at the spire. "It let us live." Rice didn't answer, just stared at Zarvek. He knew why. The thing, whatever it was, had spoken to him. It had looked inside his mind, found his fear. It had almost broken him. Almost. But something had changed. Zarvek wasn't sure what it was. He was still afraid, but he hadn't run. The team moved out of the spire room and back into the shifting halls. The walls had changed again. Now they were covered in marking symbols burned into the surface, like someone had tried to warn future explorers. Some of the writing was human. Some wasn't. One line glowed faintly. "It learns from you." Zarvek read it twice. He stepped closer to Rice. "You've been in places like this before." Rice nodded slightly. "Similar, not as alive as this one. And those creatures?" Right? Looked at him. "We don't know what they are. We call them mimics. They copy memories. Faces, sometimes sounds, sometimes worse." Zarvek remembered the voice that had sounded like his mother. He didn't speak again. After 20 more minutes of careful movement, the team reached a chamber shaped like a perfect cube. At the center floated a glowing orb, bright blue, humming with power. Rice raised her hand. "That's what we came for. Data core." Mac whistled low. That thing's older than Earth. "Probably older than Kohler too," Zarvek said without thinking. The orb pulsed brighter. Ren stepped forward, unpacking a scanning unit, setting up the link. Give me 2 minutes. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the corridor behind them. Zarvek spun around. Rice cursed. Mimics. Max snapped his visor down. We hold here, Ren. Work fast. Zarvek positioned himself behind a column. His heart was pounding again. But this time, he didn't freeze. The shadows in the hallway moved unnaturally. Then from the dark came a tall, thin shape. It walked like a man, but its arms were too long. Its skin was stretched tight like paper over bone. Its head tilted unnaturally as it stared into the room. Then it spoke in Ren's voice. Scanning complete. Downloading now. Ren looked up from his console. Oh no, no. That's not me. More figures appeared behind the first. They all looked raw and twisted, twitching. Unfinished copies of the human soldiers. One of them wore Rice's armor. It stepped forward, smiling too wide. Zarvek raised his weapon. Orders. Rice gave the word without hesitation. Light them up. The room exploded with noise. Zarvek fired. The blast tore through one of the mimics, but it kept moving. Dragging its limbs toward him, the humans moved like a machine-tight formation, covering each other, pushing back hard. Zarvek had never seen fighting like this. No panic, no wasted shots. When Mac ran out of ammo, he tossed his rifle, pulled a blade, and leapt onto one of the mimics. Driving the knife through its eye, Rice moved through the line, calling targets, dragging wounded back, shooting anything. That got close, and Zarvek fought. Not like before, not frozen. He moved with them, his claws slicing, his shots precise. He felt fear, but it didn't stop him this time. It focused him. The mimics screamed and dropped, and just like that, they were gone. Silence returned. Ren, still working, shouted, I've got it. Data core secured. Rice checked her ammo. Then let's go. Back to the ship. As they turned to move, Zarvek caught something out of the corner of his eye. One of the bodies was still twitching. He stepped closer. It was the one that had mimicked Rice. The face was broken, half melted, but still smiling. Its eyes flickered. Then its lips moved. You will burn beside them. Zarvek crushed its head with a stomp. He turned, breathing heavy. Rice looked at him. You okay? He nodded slowly. I'm beginning to understand. The team moved quickly through the corridors. The hallways were shifting again, but Rice seemed to know where to go. Zarvek stayed close. He looked around as they ran. The walls were no longer clean. They were covered in marks. Deep scratches. Like something had tried to claw its way out. They turned a corner. A new shape blocked their path. It wasn't a mimic. It was something else. It was tall almost, touching the ceiling. Black armor fused to its skin. No eyes. Just a smooth, shining mask. It stood still like a statue. Mac cursed under his breath. That's new. Rice raised her weapon. Don't move. The thing didn't react then. Without warning, it raised one long arm and pointed directly at Zarvek. Everyone froze. The thing spoke. Its voice wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was metal scraping across bone. You do not belong. Zarvek stepped forward. I do now. The thing tilted its head. The air grew heavy. Then it vanished. Just gone. Zarvek blinked. What was that? Rice didn't answer right away then. She said that wasn't a mimic. Mac muttered. No, that was something watching the mimics. Something worse. They ran the rest of the way in silence. When the team finally burst out of the structure into the cold gray light of the surface, Zarvek felt like he could finally breathe again. The dropship was waiting. Engines hot. They boarded fast. Doubt no one. Talked until the ship had broken atmosphere and jumped into orbit. Only then did Rice speak. She walked over to Zarvek, sat across from him and stared. You held the line, she said. Zarvek met her eyes. I almost didn't, but you did. He didn't know how to answer that. She leaned back. You've seen now what we face. Why we don't wait. Why we don't back down. Zarvek nodded. I used to think fear was weakness, but now I see fear as the price, the entry fee. Rice smiled faintly. Exactly. Mac laughed from the corner, Scaly's starting to get it. The ship continued upward, leaving the cursed place behind. But deep inside Zarvik's chest, something had shifted forever. He had fought beside humans, and he had finally begun to understand the kind of fear that didn't break a warrior. It built one. The ship hung silently in orbit, cold and quiet. Zarvek stood near the observation window, watching the stars. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Below, the alien structure still floated above the planet's surface and changed, but somehow still alive, it had let them leave. That was the part that haunted him most. The others were in the armory, rearming and patching wounds. But Zarvek couldn't stop thinking about the figure they had seen, the one that had looked at him, the one that spoke. "You do not belong," it had said. Zarvek had spoken back. But now, alone with his thoughts, he wondered if he'd made a mistake. Rice entered the room behind him. Her footsteps were quiet. "You're still thinking about it," she said. Zarvek nodded without turning. "That thing, it knew me. It saw me." She stood beside him. "It's not the first time we've seen something like that. They're called Watchers. They don't attack. They don't speak usually. But this one did." "Yeah," she said softly. "It did." Zarvek looked at her. "Why?" Rice didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Come with me." They walked through the ship in silence, passing humming engines and glowing corridor lights. She led him to a locked chamber. The doors hissed open. Inside was a secure room lined with data servers, holograms, and old mission files. The walls were covered in photos, black and white images of strange creatures, dead mimics, twisted ruins, even things Zarvek couldn't name. Rice tapped a screen. A video played. Young human soldier stood in front of a fire shouting. Behind him, a ruined base smoked. His face was pale. His voice trembled. "They're not just monsters," he said. "They learn. They evolve. And they remember us. Every time we go in, they come out stronger." Zarvek watched the soldier scream, and the screen cut out. Rice looked at him. "That was 10 years ago. We lost that whole outpost. One survivor, him." Zarvek pointed at another photo. "That creature. It's like the one we saw." Rice nodded. "Yes, they're not mimics. Or something older. Something behind the mimics." Zarvik's throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "This before? Because you weren't ready?" He stared at her. "Now I am." "You stood your ground," she said. "You faced fear and didn't let it break you." Zarvek clenched his jaw. "Fear doesn't break me." Rice looked him in the eyes. "It should. That's the point." She pointed at the screen again. "The soldiers who survive this kind of war, they don't walk away untouched. You've seen it. You've felt it. It changes you." Zarvek said nothing. Rice leaned against the console. "You want the truth?" He nodded. She pressed another button. A new hologram appeared. It was a blueprint, a human soldier, but something was wrong. The bones were metal. The skin was reinforced. The eyes glowed red. Zarvek stepped back. "What is this?" "Our team," she said. "Iron Pack." Zarvek stared at the figure. "You're not normal soldiers." "No," Rice said. "We're not." Mac's voice came from the door behind them. "You still breathing, lizard?" Zarvek turned. Ak entered, followed by Ren and 2 others. All of them stood quietly, calm. Zarvek looked at Rice. "You're augmented." She nodded. "Some of us cybernetic, some enhanced genetically, others with less explainable things." Ren lifted his sleeve, revealing glowing blue lines under the skin. "Psychic echoes," he said. "Side effect of exposure. I see glimpses. Shadows," Mac chuckled. "He dreams of stuff before it happens, usually stuff that gets us killed. We try not to let him talk too much." Zarvik's voice was cold. "You lied to me." "We didn't lie," Rice said. "We just didn't tell you everything." "Why bring me here?" Zarvek asked. "Why let me see all this?" "'Cause you earned it," she said. Zarvek turned away. Felt like the floor was shifting beneath him. Not physically, just everything he believed, cracking. Mac stepped forward. You think this makes us monsters? Zarvek didn't answer. Mac shrugged. Maybe it does, but we're the only monsters willing to go into the dark when everyone else runs. Rice looked at Zarvek. You've fought well. But you need to understand, this war isn't clean. It's not like your empire's campaigns. You don't win by numbers. You don't win by pride. You win by surviving the impossible. Zarvek clenched his fists, and becoming less of yourself every time. Sometimes, she said. But that's the cost. He stared at her, angry and confused. So what now? Do I become like you? A half-machine killer with red eyes? Rice didn't flinch. No, you stay you. But if you want to keep fighting beside us, you'll have to accept what's coming. Zarvik's breath was heavy. He turned and walked out of the room without speaking, down the hall. Past the bunks, into the cargo bay. Needed space. Silence. The lights were low. Crates were stacked neatly along the walls. He sat down, rested his head in his hands. For a moment he didn't feel like a warrior. He felt lost. Then he heard footsteps. Someone sat beside him. Mac, I get it, Mac said quietly. First time I saw the truth, I threw up in a supply bin. Zarvek didn't answer. You're not weak, Mac said. You just haven't decided yet. You decided what? Who you are? After this, Zarvek looked at him. Want to lose what I am? Mac gave him a sideways smile. Then don't. But understand you already started changing the moment you stepped into that hellhole with us. Zarvek closed his eyes. He didn't know what scared him more. The monsters in the dark. Or the humans who ran toward them with open arms. That night he dreamed. In the dream he was back inside the alien structure, but this time he was alone. No humans. Just the silence. And then he saw himself. Another Zarvek standing ahead. Same armor. Same weapon. But the eyes were glowing red. Choose, the other Zarvek said. Then everything went black. He woke with a start. The next day they got a new mission alert. A distress signal. From a lost human colony. One Rice swore had been abandoned years ago. Zarvek stared at the screen and quietly nodded. He would go with them. He would face the dark again. Because fear was no longer his enemy. It was now part of him. The distress signal repeated every 13 seconds. ... This is Colony Virion 6. Requesting aid. Unknown life forms. Power failing. Please, then static. Zarvek stood beside Rice in the command room of the ship, watching the message loop. Again and again. The colony on Virion 6 had been abandoned 5 years ago. Official reports said a mining accident caused structural collapse and mass death. Survivors were relocated. No one went back. But now, someone was calling for help. Could be a trap, Ren said, arms crossed. His eyes had that distant look again, like he wasn't fully in the room. Or bait, Mac added, like a spider waiting in its old web. Zarvek didn't speak. His mind kept returning to that voice in his dream, the other version of himself. Choose, it had said. But choose what?
Ice.
Turn from the console. Trap or not, someone's down. There, and they're using a human encryption key that was retired 3 years ago. We're going in, no one argued. The dropship broke atmosphere in silence. Everyone was tense. No jokes. No banter. Just the soft hum of engines and the sound of weapons being checked and re-checked. Outside, Virion 6 was quiet. A dead world. The colony was a gray sprawl of half-collapsed buildings and scorched ground. As they approached, they could see the scorch marks weren't from mining gear. They were from weapons. Zarvek checked his visor. No life signs. Rice shook her head. They're hiding, or underground. They landed near the old command dome. The buildings were hollowed out, glass shattered, walkways buckled. A thick fog rolled in around them. Zarvek stepped off the ramp. The air was heavy, too quiet, no wind, no movement. It felt like the whole planet was holding its breath. They advanced slowly. The team fanned out, weapons raised. Zarvek kept 2 Rices. Sighed as they reached the main dome. The old doors opened on their own. No power. No heat. But the doors opened. Mac muttered, "That's not a good sign." Inside, the colony looked untouched. Desks, terminals, old personal items, cups still sitting half full on tables. It was like the people had just stepped out and never returned. Ren pointed. Signals coming from below. Deep shaft in the eastern tunnel. Rice nodded. Then we go. They reached the shaft after 10 silent minutes. A massive elevator hung by thick cables, rusted but still functional. Lights flickered below like something was waiting. They descended as the platform dropped into darkness. Zarvek could feel the weight of the colony above pressing down. The farther they went, the less human it felt. The walls changed. First metal, then stone, then something else. Something grown, not built. The shaft opened into a cavern, hidden level far beneath the colony. It wasn't on any map. Rice stepped off the lift and scanned. Biosigns, faint, scattered. Zarvek knelt. The ground pulsed under his hand. This isn't rock, it's organic. Then they heard it breathing. Not heavy, not monstrous, just soft. Like someone sleeping nearby. Then a whisper, "Help, please, help me." The team froze. The voice sounded human. A child. Ren turned pale. "No, what is it?" Zarvek asked. Ren stared ahead. "It's using the memories again. Someone from the colony. A child who died in the collapse." "How do you know that?" "Because I saw it," Ren whispered. 3 days ago?" In a dream, Rice didn't hesitate. "Stay sharp. Weapons hot. Don't speak to it." They moved deeper into the cavern. The air grew warmer, heavier. Every breath felt like it dragged. Something with it. The walls were alive, now veined with light and pulse. This place wasn't a structure. It was a body. The voice called again. "Please, don't leave me here." Zarvik's heart pounded. He could feel something in the dark just beyond their lights. Not walking. Not moving, waiting. Then the shadows shifted. The girl appeared, small, dirty, human, eyes wide. She reached out with shaking hands. "Please." Zarvek stepped forward. Rice grabbed his shoulder. "No, she's scared," Zarvek said. "She's not real." Then the girl smiled. Her mouth split wider than it should, and her eyes turned black. Zarvek barely rolled away as her form twisted and lashed out. Not a mimic, something worse. Her skin peeled back to reveal writhing tendrils, bone-like limbs. Teeth in places teeth should not be. The team opened fire, but this time the creature didn't go down. It absorbed the rounds, shifted again, splintered, into 3 more shapes. Each one looked like someone they had known. One wore Rice's old uniform. One had Mac's face, and one looked like Zarvek. He froze. Rice shouted, "Take them down." Zarvek hesitated. He saw himself his own armor, his own eyes twisted and wrong. It raised a weapon. Slowly then Mac tackled him from the side. The blast went wide. "Snap out of it," Mac shouted. Zarvek rolled over, raised his rifle. Grace Talkinger screamed and dissolved into smoke. The others followed. The room was quiet again, but the breathing hadn't stopped. Ren gasped. "It's waking up." Rice turned to him. "What?" "This whole place, it's not just some trap. It's a hive, a shell, and the thing inside." He looked at her. "It's still sleeping." Zarvek looked around. "If that was just a dream, what happens when it wakes?" No one answered. The cavern trembled. Lights flickered. The floor cracked. Something deep below groaned like metal grinding against bone. "Back to the lift," Rice ordered. They ran. The tunnels pulsed faster now, heartbeat-like. When they reached the lift, cables were gonna melted. The shaft was now a throat. They were trapped. Ren stared upward. "It's not letting us go this time." Zarvek looked at Rice. "We have the data. If we don't get it out, none of this matters." Rice pulled out a sealed data pod. "Signal range is short down here." Zarvek stepped forward. "Then, give it to me." Rice looked at him. What are you thinking? I climb, he said. Get out. Get high enough to launch the signal. You hold them off. Mac raised an eyebrow. You sure about this? No, Zarvek said honestly. But I belong now, remember? Rice stared at him for a moment, then handed over the pod. Get topside. Get the message out, no matter what. He nodded, then turned and ran straight into the shaft. The walls pulsed around him. The climb was steep. The heat grew worse. Below, he heard gunfire. Screams, laughter that wasn't human. He climbed faster. His claws bled. His breath burned, but he didn't stop at the halfway point. He opened a panel on his wrist, signal strength rising, just a bit higher. He reached a ledge, pulled himself up, launched the pod into the air. It blinked green, signal sent. Then the shaft shuddered and he saw it. A massive eye. Opened far below, not angry, just awake, and watching him for the first time in hours. Zarvek felt fear again. True, pure fear. And he understood something terrible. The humans weren't afraid because they didn't feel it. They were afraid. Kept going anyway, because some monsters can't be killed. Only delayed. He turned and leaped back down to help his team. Because if he was going to die, he'd die fighting beside the species that taught him what fear truly was. Zarvek hit the ground hard, rolling through the pulsing tunnel as the massive eye below him slowly closed again. The hole underground. Structure groaned like it was alive and stretching awake after a long, cold sleep. He didn't wait. Gunfire echoed deeper in the tunnels. Screams and voices. He ran toward them. The glow from the alien walls throbbed faster now. The air stank of burning flesh and blood, both human and unrecognizable. The enemy wasn't hiding anymore, it was hunting. He reached the team, just in time to see Ren blast one of the creatures in the head, then fall backward, clutching his stomach. Blood poured from a long gash in his side. Rice knelt beside him, trying to stop the bleeding. Her face was pale, jaw clenched. Mac was dragging something heavy behind Kovra, a wounded soldier. Zarvek didn't know. 3 others were already dead. Zarvek crouched beside Rice. Signals sent. It's out. Rice looked up, her hands soaked red. Good. Then we finish this. Zarvek glanced at Ren. The psychic's eyes fluttered, unfocused. He's seeing things again. He's always seeing things, Mac said, reloading. Doesn't mean we stop fighting. Another roar echoed through the tunnels. And not from a throat, from below. Deep below, and it was getting closer. Zarvek helped Rice lift Ren. We need to move. Where? Back to the upper levels, Rice said. Maybe the surface. If we can find an old evac shaft she didn't finish. Because the tunnel wall to their left exploded. Something crashed through a mass of writhing black limbs. Metal bones and glowing red scars. Its head was almost human. It stretched. Broken. It screamed. And the sound hit Zarvek like a punch to the chest. The creature lunged. Zarvek fired. So did Mac. The rounds tore into it, but it didn't slow. It slammed into Rice, sending her flying. She hit the wall and dropped hard. Mac ran toward it with a bladen old curved combat knife humming with energy. He screamed and stabbed upward. The blade sank in, and the creature shrieked. Then it split in half, cracking open like rotten wood. Inside wasn't blood. It was fire. Mac was thrown back, smoking but alive. Zarvek ran to Rice. Her armor was cracked. Blood ran from her mouth, but she was breathing. He helped her up. She grabbed his shoulder and forced herself to stand. Behind them, Ren whispered, "They're not here to kill us." Zarvek turned. "What?" Ren looked at him, dazed. "Not just kill. They're testing. Watching. Every time we hit them, they change." Rice coughed. "Learning from us." "No," Ren said quietly. "Learning to be us." Zarvek stared. Into the dark, shapes moved just beyond the light. Not monsters anymore. Soldiers, human shapes, wearing armor. Holding rifles, imitations, but close. Too close. Rice raised her weapon. "They're copying us now." "Which means we scared them," Max said, limping to her side. "They want what they fear." Zarvek looked at the figures. "How do we fight ourselves? Rice grinned. We don't. We fight smarter. She tossed a grenade into the shadows and yelled, "Move." The blast gave them cover to run. They moved fast, ducking through collapsing halls, dodging mimic fire, sliding through vents barely wide enough to crawl. Every corner turned into a trap. Every room held something waiting. They found an old escape shaft. A rusted ladder climbed all the way up to the surface. Rice motioned. "Zarvek, go first. If they come through while we're climbing, you hold them." He climbed. Every step up felt like a countdown. Below, the others followed, wounded, bleeding, exhausted. At the halfway point, the shaft shook. Then came the scream again, the one with the fire inside. Zarvek looked down. It was crawling after them, faster than he could imagine, its limbs stabbed into the walls for grip. It was coming. He climbed faster. Above, a faint glow appeared. The top of the shaft. They were close, but not close enough. The creature grabbed Rice's ankle. She screamed and kicked, trying to shake it. Zarvek reached down. Their fingers touched. He pulled her with all his strength, dragging her up. Just far enough for her to kick the creature's head. Mac turned and dropped, mine onto the thing's back. Then they scrambled upward again. Boom. The mine exploded on the shaft, collapsed behind them. They burst into daylight, but the sky wasn't. Empty. 3 dropships hovered above the ruins, armed, human-made, bearing the Iron Pack insignia. Backup had arrived. Soldiers poured out of the ships, forming a perimeter. Medics rushed forward. Drones scanned the ruins. Heavy walkers stomped past, weapons charged. Zarvek fell to the ground, panting. Rice knelt beside him. "You made it." He shook his head. "We made it." Mac dropped beside them, covered in dirt and ash. Ren's down. They're stabilizing him now. Rice looked toward the horizon. "And we won today." Zarvek stared into the rising smoke from the colony ruins. "No," he said. "We didn't win. We survived. There's a difference." The general stepped toward them from one of the ships. "Captain Rice, we got your signal." "What the hell happened?" "Down there?" Rice stood slowly. "The colony wasn't dead. It was changing. Something ancient is down there. Something watching." The general raised an eyebrow. "And did you kill it?" Zarvek stood beside her. "No," he said. "We woke it up." The general stared at him. Rice added, "And now it knows who we are." The wind blew harder. Below the ground in the dark, something watched the sky. It had seen humanity's strength, its fear, its defiance, and now it was learning not to destroy them, but to become them, because the real war wasn't above ground. It had just begun, and it would wear a human face. The sky over Varensyx was red with ash. Zarvek stood at the edge of the crater, watching human engineers set up a containment barrier. Towers buzzed with power. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter with heavy weapons. Drones hovered overhead like silent watchers, but none of it felt safe. Not after what they saw below. Captain Rice stood beside him, her ribs wrapped, her arm in a sling. She hadn't rested. Not since the rescue. Neither had Zarvek. Ren was still unconscious. Mac was quiet. It's too quiet. The whole team knew this wasn't over. And somewhere below, the thing in the dark was still changing. A deep voice interrupted their thoughts. General Halden stepped toward them, his armor freshly polished, his face cold. "We're sealing the ruins within the hour," he said, flooding it with plasma, burning everything. "This mission is over." Rice shook her head. "It won't work." Zarvek added, "You're not facing a structure. You're facing a mind, and it's awake now." Halden frowned. "You're suggesting it survived a direct detonation? It learns from everything." "We do," Zarvek said. "Every attack, every tactic. It doesn't just survive, it adapts." The general folded his arms. "You said you feared it? Why exactly did you see down there?" Zarvek stared into the swirling smoke. "I saw what happens when a predator finds something more dangerous than itself and tries to become it." Rice nodded. "It's not a monster anymore. Studying us." I don't think it even wants to kill humanity. Then what does it want? Rice looked at Halden. To replace us. The general said nothing for a long time. Then he turned to his second-in-command and said, "Bring me the psychic." Moments later, Ren was wheeled forward on a stretcher. Barely awake, wires still connected to his chest. His eyes fluttered open. "It's not done." Rice leaned down. "Ren, can it hear us now?" He nodded weakly. "It hears everything. It's not just one mind. It's many. Linked, growing, and it's building something." Zarvek asked, "Where?" Ren's lips trembled. "Off-world? It's already spread." Halden's voice turned sharp. "What do you mean spread?" Ren's breathing slowed. "The data I saw in its mind, it infected the old deep scan satellites. Before we left the tunnels, before you got the signal, it used our own signal to escape. It's on the network now." The general looked at Rice. "Is that possible?" She nodded grimly. "If it copied enough of our tech, then yes. It could have used our communication systems like a ladder." Halden swore under his breath. Zarvek turned to the horizon. "Where would it go first?" Rice answered without hesitation. "To places we won't expect it. Forgotten colonies, silent stations, dead systems." Ren coughed, "Or ships in deep space, alone, waiting for help." Halden straightened. "Then we need to alert command. Initiate a sweep of the outer rim." Zarvek shook his head. "Too late for that." Everyone turned to look at him. He pointed upward. A strange flicker passed across the sky, like a shimmer in a pool of oil. Then, suddenly, the atmosphere darkened. Not from a storm, from shadows. Hundreds of them. Small, fast, craft descending from orbit, black and silent. With no signal, no flags, no lights. Each one shaped like a hybrid of human and alien design. Rice backed up. "That's not our fleet," Halden yelled into his com, full alert. "All units prepare for contact." Sirens blared across the base. Soldiers ran for cover. Anti-air turrets turned skyward. But the ships didn't fire. They simply hovered. Watching then. A voice echoed through every com unit, every helmet, every speaker. It sounded human almost. "But just wrong enough. This is not an invasion." Zarvek froze. He recognized the voice. It was his own. The voice continued calm and cold. "This is evolution." The sky turned black as the swarm expanded. Not attacking, surrounding. The base became a cage. The humans were trapped in the center of a growing storm. Ren whispered. "It copied all of us." "Mac," rifle ready, said. "Then what's it waiting for?" No one answered. Then the largest ship landed outside the perimeter. At a surface rippled like liquid metal. A door opened. A figure stepped out. It looked like Rice. Same height, same gear. Same expression. Only the eyes were empty. Zarvek stepped forward behind him. The soldiers aimed their weapons, but Rice held up her hand. "No one fires." "Not yet." Clone walked slowly to the edge of the barrier and smiled. Then it spoke in Rice's voice. "You showed us fear." Its head tilted. "Now we show you the future." Dozens more stepped from the ship's dot copies of soldiers, of scientists, of ZARVEK. Each one more perfect than the last. Rice whispered, "It's not trying to destroy us." Zarvek finished, "It's trying to replace us one by one without war." Halden gave the order. Weapons hot. Turrets charged. Cannons glowed. But Zarvek looked back at the clone, his own face staring at him with a calm smile. And for the first time, he didn't know if humanity would win, because this wasn't a war for land or resources. This was a war for identity, for the idea of what it means to be human, and somewhere deep inside he knew. This enemy would never stop, because it wasn't just learning, it believed it was. It's becoming something better, and that was the scariest thing of all. Not death, but replacement by something that looked like you, talked like you, but didn't understand. What it meant to fight through fear, to choose defiance, to stand together. Rice whispered, "We make our stand here." Zarvek nodded. "Then let them learn one more thing." Mac raised his rifle. Ren smiled weakly from the stretcher, and all around them, soldiers aimed high. Zarvek stared into his own face across the field. What it means when humans are afraid but fight anyway. The sky roared, and the final battle began.